I finally lost another red-purple mirror match on ladder. My opponent was in a winning position, and then the Aladdin bug on Pixelborn triggered, and he got a +8 lore swing, ending my crazy red-purple streak. So I basically quit playing red-purple after that. Just kidding. I did experiment with a few variations of yellow steel on ladder, as it's the current #1 deck, and I was having fun with it till I ran into the #1 ranked player, the legend himself, Duckie. He's still piloting the Duckie version of Yellow Steel and schooled me in the mirror match, as he has infinitely more experience and better understanding of the mirror match. And his updated deck also was tuned better for the mirror. So I quit playing Yellow Steel after that. I still think Red Purple is a top 3 deck in the meta, so today I wanted to cover a recent match I played on High Ladder where I played Red Purple against Steel Yellow. We faced off against Crims, or Crimes, I'm just going to call him Crimes for the rest of the video, who's a strong player, ranked number 14 on ladder at the time of this video. I knew I'd recognize the name, but I wasn't sure what he was running, though we might have played before, so I was entering the matchup blind. My most knowledgeable matchup by far is the red-purple mirror, but for steel-yellow matchup, I'm still learning a lot of the ins and outs, so bear with me if I'm wrong about some things. There's actually a few versions of Yellow Steel out there, and you have to play differently against each version. I'll cover the Ariel Singer archetypes, which are the strongest, and I'll say there's an aggressive version with Lilo, Stitch, Simba, and Rockstar Stitch that runs Whole New World. Some run Lanterns. These decks, in my opinion, are a lot scarier for red-purple's control, as you're always under pressure, and they can just reload their entire hand with a Whole New World. And there's a lot of RNG in that game. Then there's the Duckie type versions, which are more mid-range and not so aggressive, and they try to gain incremental card advantage with cards like You Have Forgotten Me, Ariel grabbing more ink targets like Hakuna Matata, until they end up dropping their beefy dudes and Surfer Stitches to win the game. These lists typically don't run Lilo, Simba, Stitch, or a Whole New World. I think these variations are more popular in the metagame at the top ladder. My overall performance with red-purple against yellow steel is around 60%, but it's been a bit of a learning process for me to get to know the matchup. So let's just jump into the game review. We go second here, which I'm pretty happy with, given this hand. Tibbs, Gaston, Maleficent, and Cauldron, really couldn't ask for more. I'm always keeping Tibbs and Gastons. If you gave me a hand with 4 Tibbs, I might even keep all 4 Tibbs. I see a lot of players mulligan away their second Tibbs, and I think red-purple is a crazy ink-hungry deck. So against aggro, you need the Tibbs and Gastons, and against mid-range and control, you just need ink, and they're perfect ink cards. When people mulligan away their ink cards and try to draw better, by turn or 3, a lot of times they realize, oh, I don't know what to ink anymore, and sometimes they just end up inking their good cards, which can be a problem. I get rid of Broom, and I should have gotten rid of Goofy, I think, but for the starting hand, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Since I'm keeping an uninkable Cauldron, I think keeping any inkable cards is probably a conservative and safe play. So I get a small Elsa, and by the way, I'll quickly go over my updated deck list I'm running on ladder. I added a couple small Elsa back in the deck, and I got rid of Jafar and Queen. I upped my Goofy count to 3, dumped my Rafikis in place of Zeus, since Rafiki is just so awful against Rapunzel's. You can just pause the video here if you want to take a closer look, and I'll link my updated deck in the description. My opponent inks a Smash turn 1 and says go. Mid-range Yellow Steel runs Smash, but not all aggro lists do. He also passed the turn without a turn 1 play, so here we should be about 80% confident we're against a mid-range deck. Against the mid-range variant of Yellow Steel, I like to play very slowly and ink my Tibbs and Gastons, as the other player will probably also want to take it slow into the mid-game as well. If I don't play a Tibbs turn 1, I should expect him to start inking his Captain Hooks and Erics as well. So I ink Tibbs and pass. And as expected, he inks a Captain Hook and passes, and it seems like he'll be taking the pretty standard approach to this matchup. I ink a Tibbs and play Cauldron and get to use it immediately. We face a tough decision, seeing a Mirror and Maui, which are two fantastic cards in this matchup. I think over it for a while, and I know Yellow Steel runs Beasts, but I really want the Magic Mirror, and I'm not going to play it early and let it die to Beast unnecessarily. I'll probably try to get it out on turn 6 to activate it immediately. There's also the chance that he beasts the Cauldron early if he doesn't see a Magic Mirror. Then I can start drawing a bunch of cards after he uses up his Beast trigger. Since his deck is mid-range and not aggro, Magic Mirror is a really big card for us mid to late game, so I go for the Mirror here. Turn 3 he inks Tinkerbell and passes. He hasn't shown us his second color, but he's a top ladder player, so it's almost certainly Yellow Steel. His turn 4 is coming up, and we have to be very careful when considering what his turn 4 play is. The 4 major cards in his deck that will have massive game impacts are Rapunzel by a mile, You Have Forgotten Me, Surfer Stitch, and Beast, I think in that order. I'll just say that from many losses against Yellow, I've learned that if your opponent lands a Rapunzel against a careless play from you, you'll just lose the game. Against any Yellow deck, your head should constantly be thinking about playing around Rapunzel from turn 4 and onward. This is why I took Rafiki out of my deck. Rapunzel is just the most broken card in Lorcana right now. You also need to really play around You Have Forgotten Me in this matchup, as if it hits a few critical cards at the right moments, you just lose the game right there. So on my turn 3 I Cauldron, and I decide to take the Tibbs for ink value instead of the Be Prepared. He's not playing very aggressively, and so I think ink is more valuable than a board wipe, especially since I need it to start activating Magic Mirror. He should be a good player, so he'll be playing around my Be Prepared, so it's hard to get crazy value out of that card. On turn 3, I have mostly 2 decisions of playing Maleficent or playing Friends on the other side. I'm not going to play my Magic Mirror into his Beast if I can't immediately get a card off of it, so that play is off the table. Maleficent is really good against aggro decks, as she draws you a card and provides a body to trade with their characters. But here, having board presence with her isn't that important to me, as she might get 1 lore value and then just die to swords. I can't exert her to cast stuff like Friends on the other side usually, because you just open yourself up to get Rapunzel traded. I'd also like more card fodder for a turn 4 You Have Forgotten Me, so I decide to draw the extra 2 cards by casting Friends and I pass. Turn 4, I'm probably going to discard a small Elsa and probably Maleficent to his You Have Forgotten Me. But he uses his 4th ink and plays a Cinderella, which now I realize is not the Duckie version of the deck. I'm not too familiar with the Cinderella versions of the deck, and now I have a little bit of concern about a whole new world possibly being in this deck. So I also need to keep that card on my mind going forward with the match. On our turn 4, we ink Tibbs, and we have another interesting decision. I take a second Mirror because the pace of this matchup is really slow. I already have a Be Prepared, and I just really think he's going to land a Beast soon. If he doesn't have a Beast, then the second Mirror is still pretty good as food for the You Have Forgotten Me. Now, my decision here is whether I play the Mirror to get the Beast out of his hand, or play Elsa or Maleficent, or just pass. Again, I think Maleficent really doesn't do anything for me on this board state, and I'd rather ink her later. Elsa also isn't really useful here since I don't have a Maui or Big Elsa in my hand, so I ended up just passing without doing anything, which I really don't mind. If he has a Beast in hand, it's definitely going to come out next turn, so maybe I should have just played my Mirror since I have another coming up, but it might be nice to have 2 Mirrors just in case he has 2 Beasts. He sings Be Our Guest and passes turn without playing Beast. So I feel like his hand no longer actually has You Have Forgotten Me or Beast. I think he was singing the Be Our Guest with Cinderella to try to draw a Beast and play it, but I guess he whiffed. It's good to try and make these reads on your opponent hand here, and I'm gonna have to say he's probably holding some Surfer Stitch and Rapunzels and probably big Tinkerbells. I also think his turn 5 was a really good opportunity for him to sing a whole new world since I have so many more cards than him. So I don't think he even has that card in his hand, or maybe even in the deck. Turn 5, I decide I might need some removal, so I take Dragonfire since I have enough ink with Maleficent and Elsa in my hand. And then I play Goofy for board presence and to set up for a turn 6 mirror and draw. He plays Beast on his turn, destroying my Cauldron. It's possible that he was still saving it for a mirror, but when I played Goofy, since I established some board pressure, he needed to respond with board pressure as well, and just played his Beast, or he could have just drawn it. He also passes without inking, so he must have a few Surfer Stitches or Kronks or something like that. In game, I didn't really think about this, but I also realized he could be sitting on a bunch of uninkables like Swords or Hades, and that's why he missed his 6th ink. You really want to hit that 6th ink and 7th because of how big Surfer Stitch is in the matchup. Turn 6, I play Mirror and I activate, and now the game should start running away from him, mid to late game if I have an active Mirror. This will force the action back to him to respond, as he can't just sit back anymore and let me draw off Mirror forever. His turn 6, he quests and inks Cerberus. I assume he'll be setting up for a turn 7 Stitch, which is a huge turn for him. He passes without playing anything since he knows my turn 7 contains a potential Be Prepared. Since he's up 2 lore in the race to 20, it's now up to me to respond to this board in some manner. On turn 7, I have 2 big decisions. Be Prepared is out of the question since it's not even card advantage if I wipe my Goofy off the board. I can either kill one of his characters with my Dragonfire and deny a turn 7 Surfer Stitch, or I can play Aladdin and stop his aggression in his tracks. I end up deciding on Aladdin since I have a shield in my hand, so I'll be winning the lore race. If he Surfer Stitches, he still has to hold back on offense, and once I start swinging with both Goofy and Aladdin, my lore count will get out of control, and he still can't swing in with Cinderella or Beast since Aladdin will just eat them up. So he'll be losing this race with Surfer Stitch against my 2 characters. So then if he responds by playing extra characters to pull ahead in the race, I can simply wipe the board with Be Prepared while having a mirror advantage. On his turn, he skips his 7th ink and plays Tinkerbell and sings out a Swords. He then swings with his Beast, inviting me to trade for Aladdin. On my turn, I decide to keep Aladdin on the board and trade with his Cinderella. I think this turn had my biggest misplay of the game. If I were to read into the last couple turns of his play, it should be pretty clear that he has another sword in hand, probably a big Tinkerbell that he could shift, which will kill my Aladdin, and most likely a Rapunzel or even yellow Hades, but I didn't think about that stuff too deeply. So if we can make that read into his hand for having those cards, I think clearly the best play here is to use Shield to untap Aladdin and trade for his Beast, which denies him his turn 7 Surfer Stitch. Hades is 1 full turn too slow to play a Beast on the same turn, and we also have our second mirror from earlier that had prepared for this scenario. In the moment, I played an Aladdin because I thought he was just going to trade his small Tinkerbell into my Aladdin and swing in with his Beast, and I was hoping I could shift Aladdin and kill his Beast the following turn. But this was super narrow-minded and optimistic thinking, because if he just plays a grab your sword, he just wipes my entire board. So I think playing this Aladdin here was a complete blunder on my part. He does sword and wipe my board, still skips his 7th ink and quests with his Beast and passes. On my turn, I draw off Mirror and Dragonfire his Beast. I still don't know that he's playing Hades in this deck, but he probably is given how often he skipped his 7th ink, and I just wasn't thinking about Hades at the time. I don't think this was a great play, especially since I draw a 3rd mirror. I think just playing Aladdin and passing might be the way to establish board control while threatening to keep drawing cards off mirror. While this stops a Surfer Stitch next turn, I actually don't think Surfer Stitch is a huge threat if I have an Aladdin on the board and a Be Prepared in hand with mirrors drawing me cards. He does end up playing a Hades, which I should have seen coming if I had only thought about it harder, and finally gets to a 7th ink. On my turn, I draw off mirror, ink a friends on the other side, since I just want the ink and I can play and activate my second mirror. The problem with this play though is that it disincentivizes him from playing beast on my mirror, and probably will play it on my shield or future pocket watch if I play it. So maybe playing friends on the other side and holding my mirror to bait his beast into killing my first mirror would have been a better play. He finally finds a Surfer Stitch off a Be Our Guest that he sings off Hades, and is able to play it on this turn, and then he quests and passes back to us. We're very happy to play Be Prepared here. Our mirrors will negate the 2 cards he drew off Stitch, and our only decision this turn is to either ink a pocket watch and draw a card, or play a pocket watch and pass and let him beast my pocket watch. Since I want to keep my shield and I have a second pocket watch in hand, I decided to just let him have my first pocket watch. He beasts my pocket watch and passes. On my turn, I draw a bunch of cards. I need to get to 11 ink so I can play pocket watch, play Aladdin, activate pocket watch in anticipation for him swinging with his beast next turn. I rip some pretty juicy cards off the top 4 of my deck, and I pass. On his turn, Crimes just ends up questing and passing the turn without doing anything, which makes me believe he must have a really garbage hand for him to do this. He does have board control and lore advantage with the beast on board, so it's up to me to do something. On my turn, I was planning to pocket watch Aladdin, but I had a brain fart and I played too fast and drew a card off mirror, and for some reason I thought my pocket watch was already on the board. So luckily I drew an Ursula, and I just ended up playing her instead and inking the Gaston I drew off her. He won't be able to race my Ursula shield with his beast, so the prerogative's on him to have an active response on his turn by playing stuff onto the board. He plays a Tinkerbell and passes. I guess he's just really nervous about another Be Prepared in this spot. I assume he's setting up for another Surfer Stitch, but the race is looking really bad for him even if he lands the Surfer Stitch. On my turn, I have a few options. I don't actually think Maui is one of them. I could Elsa and quest without using shield, or I could quest shield with Ursula and still have enough for a Maleficent Dragon, which is what I ended up doing. I target his small Tinkerbell, as I don't want to deal with some shifting shenanigans. Pocket Watch Aladdin consumes 11 ink, which is too much right now, and I really want to keep that in my hand as a surprise finisher. On his turn, he casts Big Tinkerbell and passes, and the game is basically just over, given what I'm holding and the board presence that I have. It was a bit anticlimactic end to the game, but I was playing super hard around Rapunzel and You Have Forgotten Me's. Rapunzel wasn't even played that game since I allowed 0 opportunities for her to draw cards, which means his only draw card source was Surfer Stitch. I kept a ton of cards constantly in my hand to play around You Have Forgotten Me, so I don't think my opponent could have gotten an advantage with that card either. I played a lot of decisions around how I thought he would play his beast. If you can get to the mid to late game relatively unscathed against mid-range yellow steel, I think purple actually has a good matchup against the deck, especially when you start dropping your big bombs like Elsa, Ursula, Aladdin, some of your evasives, and Maleficent Dragons. Where you really lose the matchup is when you make a single misjudgment play against Rapunzel and they snowball their card advantage from there. Or you expose yourself to a crucial You Have Forgotten Me, and that's also how you typically lose these games. If they get a beast that kills a mirror that got no value, this small edge is also usually enough to put you behind and in a losing position. Yellow steel has to mostly avoid basic errors against purple red, like not playing too much into Be Prepared and not giving too much Aladdin value, and red purple just needs to focus on playing around Rapunzel's and You Have Forgotten Me. Anyways, I hope you guys liked the video. I'll try to cover some more different matchups in the future when I feel like I have a decent grasp of them. I usually don't like to make videos if I don't feel like I have some basic understanding of the matchup. And as usual, thanks for watching.